Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And this week my first question comes from Morgan Guillemot, who says, not sure if this is weird enough to go into the lightning round. I did my MA on Holocaust fiction and we looked at Maus. I found the metaphor of Jew equals mice and Germans equals cats hella bad. It reinforced the idea that Jewish Germans were not Germans and that it was somehow natural for the Holocaust to happen, let alone showing the Poles and pigs. It's an incredible story, but the metaphors were just ugly. What do you think? The lightning round. I don't think I could handle this question in the lightning round. This is going in the main segment, my friend. Yeah, I actually agree with you. As I said last week when I addressed the question of greatest graphic novels or whatever, I think Maus is a masterpiece. I think Maus is just devastating and beautiful and one of the most affecting things I've ever read. But I agree with you. I do think that the metaphors are simplistic and a little superficial, a little on the nose. And look, for reasons you bring out in your question, it's not as simple as, well, the Jews are the mice and the Germans are the cats. And cats eat mice, so the Germans are destroying the Jews. Like that doesn't really work for me. As you say, it suggests that Jews living in Germany were not Germans, that they were something else. And of course, you mentioned the Poles being pigs. There are also when the Americans show up near the end, they're dogs. So it's simplistic. It's an imperfect metaphor. I get what Art Spiegelman was going for when he decided to do it that way. And there are some interesting meta comments that are made using the Jews as mice and Nazis as cats metaphor. There's even a point, I think it's in the second half, in the second book of Maus, where without really explaining why or without drawing any attention to it, Spiegelman begins drawing them as people wearing cat or mouse masks. It's a subtle change, but you can notice it in the art. They're no longer actual mice and actual cats. They're people wearing masks. And I think that might be significant. I don't know if Spiegelman, I haven't read about it. I haven't heard anything that Spiegelman himself has said. I think maybe that might be an indication that he wasn't totally happy with that metaphor either, and he was trying to maybe suggest that it's not that they were mice, but they were playing the role of mice in this drama that was the Holocaust. Maybe that's something. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the metaphors of the different types of people being animals is very simplistic. Timothy Mastic. Hi, Steve. I've recently had a days-long debate with several close friends about whether or not the world would be a better place if religion didn't exist. I believe that it would be, and cited things like the Crusades and religiously motivated war in general, bigotry, discrimination, etc. One friend, who is spiritual but not explicitly religious, argued that even without religion, these terrible things would have happened anyways because humanity has the capacity to do so, and religion was just an excuse and not a pure motivator for these terrible things. What are your thoughts? I think for the most part, I agree with your friend, at least as you have described your friend's position to me. I'm not saying that the world would not be better off without religion. I think the world would be better off in general if more people believed more things with good reasons. And I don't think the reasons given by religion are generally good reasons. But at the same time, yeah, I agree with your friend that discrimination and bigotry and motivations for going to war, these things would still be there without religion. We would call them different things. They would come from different sources. Our conflicts would arise from different places. So the problems that we associate with religion would probably still be there. We would just associate them with different things. We would just be finding different things to fight about. We have to remember that religion is a man-made institution. I do think religion causes damage. I do think religious institutions have the effect of legitimizing and maintaining prejudices and bigotries and traditions that should be left behind and that often people from outside those institutions have left behind. For instance, attitudes toward women, attitudes toward LGBT people. These outmoded attitudes are incubated and maintained by certain churches, by certain types of religious institutions that discourage people from looking past them, from growing out of them. So it's not that religion doesn't have a negative effect, but we have to remember that religion is ultimately a human institution, despite its claims to supernatural authority. So it's not a pure motivator. It's simply something that human beings, in our imperfection and at the mercy of our prejudices and our biases, have constructed to excuse ourselves for our shitty behavior and to try and legitimize and justify our shitty behavior. Now, would the world be better off without it? Sure. But would it solve all of those problems? I'm afraid not. Model Major PETA, do you think we will ever be able to talk about ethics in gaming journalism again? I remember when that discussion was about insufficient barriers between the ad department and editorial department, companies giving gifts to the people reporting on them, and other ways in which game companies have undue influence over reporting and ratings. These days, when people say ethics, they almost always are claiming women have too much influence over the industry. To me, one of the worst parts of Gamergate is how they hijacked a legitimate discussion, and as a result, actual breaches of ethics are ignored. That is actually a great point, and not something that I have heard brought up very often in regards to Gamergate. Gamergate is easy to attack for its sexism and misogyny and promotion of harassment of women and promotion of this really skewed worldview where, as you say, the women and people who promote social progress are said to have so much influence on the world of video games, which is presumed to be this super huge important thing. And I've never quite heard it put that, what about the legitimate ethical issues? That's a really great point that I had never considered before. What about the legitimate ethical issues that are being ignored or drowned out by these people throwing this extended tantrum over what they perceive as women having too much of an influence, or women trying to ruin their video games? That's an excellent point. I would also like to add as well, my major beef against Gamergate, as a non-gamer myself and as someone who doesn't have a lot of natural interest in video games or video game culture or video game journalism, is that it has given gamers in general a bad name. Most people who I know in my own life who call themselves gamers have and want nothing to do with Gamergate. If they even know about it, they're horribly embarrassed by it and would hate to be associated with it. And the fact that in the minds of many people who know about Gamergate but maybe aren't as plugged into gamer culture or don't, like me, don't know very many people who are gamers, might think that accounts for the whole group. And I have not found that to be the case. Most gamers that I know and most people who write from within that community are not of the Gamergate type and are in fact incredibly embarrassed and angry about Gamergate and want to disassociate themselves from that group as much as possible. So that's another thing I would bring up, is that it possibly damages the reputation of gamers as a whole. Brad Baumander, hey, the Opinionville gang and the Steve and Stuffy gang are now one big wrestling organization, and it's your job to book a show. The show must have at least one tag team match, one Falls Count Anywhere match, and one Hell in a Cell match. Fundy Monster is the heavyweight champion. Stuffy and Toby Benson are tag team champions. How would you book this show? This is such a great question. The tag team title match would be Toby Benson and Stuffy defending against Puppet Jason and Oswald, and I think I would have Puppet Jason and Oswald win the titles because I just think they would be an awesome team. And then maybe we could have Stuffy and Toby Benson split up. Maybe Toby Benson could turn heel on Stuffy to set up a match between the two of them at the next show. As for the Falls Count Anywhere match, I would love to see a Falls Count Anywhere match between AJ and Prospector Jones, because AJ is the conspiracy theorist and Prospector Jones isn't a conspiracy theorist, but he's sort of a teller of tales. He's always talking about, he's the old guy who always has a story. So I would like to see those two compete in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And because he's a prairie dog, maybe Prospector could take it underground and AJ would have to follow him. And in the main event, we will have, for the heavyweight title, Fundy will defend the championship against a worthy challenger, I think. We'll have him defend the title against Hans Krieger. Because Hans Krieger is German, and he's taciturn, and he's very serious, and he's very efficient. And even though he's an actor, don't mistake him for a softie. He will give quite a challenge and give Fundy quite a run for his money in the title match. But if I were booking, I think I would probably have Fundy go over, because I assume that Fundy would be the heel champion, and I like a heel champion. So Fundy would go over and keep the title over Hans Krieger. But wouldn't that be a fun show? Vitamin W. It's my birthday, so maybe you can answer a long-time listener's first question. What do you think of NoFap? A cult, snake oil salesman, or a genuine movement about exploring one's sexuality? I actually had to look up what NoFap is, because I had no idea it even existed until I read your question. But based on my very superficial, brief research, it certainly doesn't seem like it's a genuine movement about exploring one's sexuality. The basic idea behind NoFap, for those of you who, like me, had no idea what the fuck it is that you stop masturbating. And you stop masturbating, and it gives you benefits. Like it clears your mind, it frees your mental processes. And some people apparently believe that they are granted special abilities because of this. And it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where George stopped having sex, and it was like flowers for Algernon, like he became a genius. I don't think that really happens, is the thing. I don't think that refraining from masturbating gives you superpowers or gives you enhanced mental abilities. I mean, you have more time on your hands. Time on your hands. I thought of that a moment before I said it, and it was nice. Anyway, it doesn't sound like a legitimate movement to me. I don't know if it's a cult or if it's just a bunch of people getting together to do something silly that they have been deluded into believing is helping them. I don't know, but there's lots of that going around. Tristan Canaday. Hey Steve, never asked a question before, so here you go. I got two of them. As atheists, we usually take the piss out of the Bible for being a horrible collection of loathsome books. However, for every couple dozen detestable stories, there are at least two morally good ones. Which is your favorite story in the Bible that actually has a really good moral to it? I really like the story of Joseph. Joseph as in the dreamer with the Technicolor jacket. I think the idea of staying positive during hardship is a nice message to give to people. However, the God shit kind of gets in the way of everything. Also, on a completely random note, can you do a 5 stupid things about zombies? They are fucking everywhere now, and I am getting sick of them. Might make a good video for Halloween. Thanks. As far as Bible stories that I think have good morals or good messages, some of the parables of Jesus are good for that. The ones where the moral is about treating each other better usually go down pretty smoothly with me. I really like the Good Samaritan. I think the Good Samaritan is a good story. I think anything that encourages people to be more charitable and to be more giving and to be more helpful, especially to strangers or to people in need, is good. There's also what I've repeatedly said is my favorite line from the entire Bible, and I think one of the most moral teachings in Christianity is it's in the book of Matthew. I can't remember the exact verse at the moment, but the line is, "That which you have done to the least of these, my brethren, you have done to me also." That line comes from a parable, so I would nominate that as well. As for 5 stupid things about zombies, you're getting ahead of me, because that's coming. That's on my list. I'm pretty sure that is going to be the 5 stupid things video for Halloween this year, for Halloween week this year. I haven't written it in stone yet, but that's probably going to be it. So congratulations. You have predicted it, and you have ruined the surprise for everyone. I hope you're happy. Pragmatic cynicism. First off, isn't the concept of white privilege the epitome of racism? In order to buy the premise, you have to not only accept the fact that white people are the majority, but you also have to accept the presupposition that the majority of those people are racist. While I can obviously deal with the facts, it seems to me the assumptions of the concept of privilege are horseshit. Secondly, as a white person, I can speak to how my whiteness affects things that happen to me personally, but I am abhorred by the idea of speaking for white people en masse, a sentiment I see echoed when you talk about speaking for atheists. However, when it comes to the conversation around LGBT rights, for example, I hear a lot of we and us being thrown around. Do you see any difference between me speaking for white people, you speaking for atheists, and a trans person speaking for trans people writ large? First of all, I think maybe you're misunderstanding the concept of privilege. And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize, but you say that it includes the assumption that the majority of white people are racists. I see it requiring no such assumption. I don't think you need to believe that the majority of white people are racist in order to accept that white people are privileged relative to other racial categories in our society. Racial bias is a real thing. It doesn't mean that you are consciously racist. It doesn't mean you are actively trying to hurt or discriminate or marginalize people of color, but you have an unconscious bias that affects your decisions and affects your perception. And this has been established in study after study after study. It's not controversial in terms of psychology or sociology to say that we are affected by implicit biases on the basis of race, among other factors. There's also the simple fact that white people have more political and economic power in our society than people of color do. That's just a fact. And even if you consciously reject racism and you make every effort to counteract the biases that might affect your decision making, if you try to be as aware and conscious as possible to avoid these sorts of things, you still benefit from white privilege as a white person. Privilege is an advantage that is conferred on you by society on the basis of nothing about you as an individual other than the particular category to which the privilege applies. You are privileged as a white person simply because you are a white person. And whether you are racist or not really doesn't have anything to do with it. The privilege still exists and you can still benefit from it as a white person. As for speaking for people, I am sheepish about speaking for people, about saying I as a white person speak for all white people, or I as an atheist speak for all atheists. But having said that, I don't think there's anything wrong with noticing trends within your group, with noticing that white people as a group tend to do certain things or tend to exhibit certain attitudes. So I don't think it's a matter of every white person or even most white people being consciously racist. I don't think that has anything to do with privilege. And I think it's possible to talk about white people in general without one individual white person presuming to speak for all white people. Piker Eyes. Hello, Steve. My wife and I are the only atheists in our respective families. At least we are the only ones willing to admit it. As a fellow atheist couple, how would you and or Ashley handle a family member openly ridiculing your position when you are around? I'm also curious of how you would handle someone saying you are not permitted to celebrate Christmas because you are an atheist, meaning you can neither get nor give gifts because you don't believe in the gift of Jesus Christ. What would you do? Would you just ignore them, or is there an argument that you would present to show them that a secular individual still has a right to celebrate a traditionally religious holiday? Honestly, if I were in a situation like that at a family function where someone was ridiculing me for being an atheist or Ashley for being an atheist or not going to church or whatever, my first instinct would be to just leave. I wouldn't engage them in an argument. I wouldn't try to start a fight. I wouldn't try to make a scene. I would just, in my fantasy, I just get up and walk out without saying a word. I don't say goodbye. I don't explain myself or explain where I'm going or what I'm doing. I just stand up, drop whatever I'm doing, and I leave. And I probably never come back. That's in my fantasy. Now, if some kind of confrontation did happen, if they were like getting in my face about something or trying to start an argument, and I didn't or couldn't just get up and leave, I think I can hold my own pretty good. I think if someone tries to give me shit about being an atheist, I can give them shit right back for being a Christian, since that's the situation it would be in if it was someone in my family, just as well as they can give me shit for being an atheist. In fact, a hell of a lot better, because I know a lot more about Christianity than people in my family or my wife's family know about atheism. As for if people say I shouldn't celebrate Christmas, if someone did not want to get me a Christmas present or receive a Christmas present from me because I was an atheist and they believed about Christmas the way you say in your question, that's fine. I wouldn't take anything from them and they wouldn't have to get anything from me. Now, if they tried to tell me what I should be doing with other people, if they tried to tell me that not only should I not exchange gifts with them, but that I shouldn't exchange gifts with other people who might want to exchange gifts with me because I'm not a Christian, I would tell them to mind their own fucking business. I mean, there are good arguments for why Christmas is a secular holiday as well as a Christian holiday. You know, there's plenty about Christmas to enjoy culturally that has nothing to do with a religious Christmas. You can like Santa Claus, you can like Christmas trees, you can like the lights, you can like exchanging gifts, you can like singing songs and watching Christmas movies and baking cookies and eating a nice meal with your family. There's all kinds of things about Christmas that make it a wonderful time of year that have nothing to do with believing in any particular religion. And if you are the type of religious person who would like to begrudge non-religious people partaking in that, then rather than try to explain it to you, I would be more likely to just say, mind your own fucking business. Celebrate Christmas with your people the way you want to, and don't try to stop me from celebrating it with people who I want to celebrate it with the way we want to. That's what I would say. I'm sure that's what I would say. Just like I'm sure whenever I hear that thunder that I'm going to say that it's time for
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Ahoy Yerno, question, if you had the budget and crew, not to mention connections, to make a movie and seriously aim for a handful of Academy Awards, would you do it, or would you do your own thing and go for a cult audience? I would do my own thing. I wouldn't necessarily be aiming for a cult audience, but I would if I had the money and the resources to make any movie that I wanted to make, I would make my movie. I wouldn't aim for the Academy Awards. I would make the movie I wanted to make. The story would come first. The work would come first. Francois Lacombe. Hi, Steve. I just listened to the Titanic episode of Late Seating, and the obvious question is, why do you guys do that to yourselves? Scarface, Ishtar, and now Titanic. Seriously, Jason even did that last review with a raging toothache, just so, I assume, it would cause him more suffering. There are so many great or even mediocre movies that would be just as interesting and much less painful to tackle. You yourself listed 5 of them in this You Had to Ask episode, meaning last week's You Had to Ask episode. Jason said that Titanic was the absolute worst, and he could never find a worse one, but somehow I have the feeling he's going to try. Why? Well, I can't speak for Jason on this, but for myself, this is my penance. Do you hear me? Oh God! This is my penance! Radical Bacon, where were you on September 11th? I was in Manheim, Pennsylvania, at the home of my girlfriend at the time, and we had been planning to take a road trip to go up to Canada to catch the last half of the Toronto Film Festival, but that didn't happen because 9/11. Kevin Logan, do you want to know what love is? And more importantly, do you want me to show you? I know what love is. I do not need you to show me. Kevin, please do not show me. I think I've made myself clear. Captain Michael, do you know much about the Good Men Project? And if so, what do you think of them? I know a little of them, and from what I know, I think it's a good project. I have actually brought them up before in arguments with people who have defended MRAs or said things against feminism. I have brought up the Good Men Project as an example of how you can speak out for men's issues. You can be concerned about men's health or men who are victims of domestic violence or things like this without being a misogynist, anti-feminist asshole. And the Good Men Project, I think for the most part, from what I can tell, embodies that concept. I almost forgot words. Colin Aspen, first off, thank you for the duo videos you did with Steph. They introduced me to another great channel. However, the new content made me realize that previously I was only subbed to and watched and paid attention to male atheists and skeptics channels and videos. My question to you is, who are some other female atheists, skeptics that you would recommend? I realize that I could probably find many channels with minimal searching and effort, but would then give up a few potential moments of basking in your attention. Thanks. Well, thank you, Colin, for thinking I'm worth basking. Yes. You can do some minimal searching and find some great channels fronted by women in the atheist skeptic community, and I highly recommend that you do that. But off the top of my head, Kristi Winters is awesome. She's one of my favorites. I love FoxyJazzabelle. I love ToritheQueer. I love AtheistMinority. There are tons and tons and tons. Like, TaintedLiberal is another one who used to be on The Breakfast Club. The Peach, who is on The Breakfast Club, who is a founding member of The Breakfast Club channel. Those are just off the top of my head. Those are some awesome women who are also atheists, skeptics, whatever on YouTube. And I would highly recommend you check those out and do a search for yourself, because there is definitely great content by women in the atheist community to be found. Ryan Taba. Hey, Steve, you talked about your... I'll try that again, Ryan. Ryan Taba. Steve, you talked about a character who just happened to be an atheist. What do you think about Temperance Brennan on the TV show Bones? You know, I haven't watched Bones in years. In fact, I'm always sort of surprised when I notice that it's still on, because I haven't watched it probably since its second or third season. But I remember really liking Bones, the character, Temperance. I thought she was a good character. I thought she was interesting. I thought that Emily Deschanel was good, gave a good performance. So yeah, I would include her as a good character who happens to be an atheist. Lucas Hackett, One Angry Brony. Hey Steve, what would you say is your least favorite genre of music? My least favorite is disco, all because I can't even stand the song We Are Family by Sister Sledge. Every time I hear it, I have to put my head through the wall just to drown the sound out. So how about it, Steve? Oh, I don't mind that song that much. I've never had to put my head through the wall. Least favorite genre of music, probably contemporary Christian. A close second would be pop country. Not country, because there's some really awesome country music, but pop country, the country that they usually play on country radio, like mainstream country, some of the worst, most derivative, least creative, most repetitive, awful fucking music you will ever hear. I do not recommend listening to it. So that would be another one too. Hey, that's it for the lightning round. Thanks everybody for your questions. Before I get out of here, I'm going to do a shout out. The shout out this week goes to someone who not only does YouTube videos, but is also an awesome writer, an awesome blogger, a tremendous voice in the atheist community. It's my pal, Sincere Kirabo. I hope he doesn't mind me calling him my pal, even though we're not that close. We've interacted here and there, but Sincere Kirabo, he has an atheist YouTube channel, which features short videos of his and a couple videos of lectures that he's given, talks he's given at conferences and stuff. But he also has a blog on the website Patheos called Notes from an Apostate that I also highly recommend you check out in addition to his YouTube channel. And Sincere Kirabo writes about intersectionality and atheism. I have mentioned that here and there in videos of my own in the past. It's not something I came up with. Sincere Kirabo, as well as many others, have been way ahead of me on that for years. He is a really important and interesting and articulate voice on the importance of not forgetting the marginalized and the less frequently heard or less frequently seen members of the atheist community. It's very important, and he's a great advocate for that and a great articulator of that. Pushes for minority representation in atheist circles, which is something that is absolutely vital to the success and the life and vitality of our movement. So Sincere Kirabo, could not recommend him more highly as a writer and as a speaker. Check out his YouTube channel and check out his blog on Patheos. Also check out, as I always recommend that you do, the Lemme Listen podcasts. You can go to LemmeListenPodcasts.com to listen to Lemme Finish, to listen to American Monsters and How to Destroy Them, and to listen to the podcast that I co-host that was mentioned in a question earlier, Late Seating. All of these podcasts are the product of the brilliant mind of Jason Harding, also known here on YouTube as Jason with a D, the creator of Opinionville. And Jason and I co-host the Late Seating podcast, where we review notable films. And our new review is going up later today, as this video is published on Friday. And we are reviewing this week Gone with the Wind, that classic Hollywood romantic epic. So check out that episode and see what we think of Gone with the Wind. And check out all of our past episodes too. As was mentioned in the question earlier, we've recently done Titanic and Ishtar and Scarface. We've done Logan's Run. We've done a whole bunch of very notable classic films and explained why we can't stand them. I'm just kidding. We like some of them. Anyway, LemmeListenPodcast.com. Check that out. I'm out of here, everybody. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. And please leave a comment on this video asking me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So until then, take care, everybody.